It's very early spring here in Wisconsin, and it's time to check on our chestnut tree. I'm excited to see if any of the chestnuts I collected and then buried for the winter germinated over winter, and hopefully I can transfer those into pots and they grow up. My last 2 attempts at this failed miserably, so hopefully I'm going to learn from those failures. And here's the chestnut tree here. It's going to be quite a while till this gets leaves, probably first or second week in May. It's the end of March right now, so we'll see how this tree's doing this year, and hopefully we can get the next generation coming up. Let's go check. The snow that gets sunlight is melted, but unfortunately we still have just a coating in these areas, but it should be gone in a couple days. Still is forecast for snow in the next couple weeks. Really not out of the clear until May, unfortunately, but we get a couple nice days sprinkled in at least. I'll leave a link to the playlist for all my American chestnut videos, but a sneak peek on last year. This is a big improvement because a squirrel didn't get in here and eat all of my chestnuts that I was hoping to germinate. So we're off to a good start. Let's open this sucker up and see how many we got to germinate. I think I had about 40 that I picked up. So hopefully I've got a dozen or so that actually germinated. Now here's what's disappointing. This looked like an exceptional one. Definitely pollinated. Oh, it cracked. So maybe that germinated. Let's set that aside. I would like to see a green shoot coming out of it though. Gonna treat these gentle, and not peel off anything. I'm gonna rinse them with water and see what we've got. Try it so I don't break anything off. What I'm seeing here is not great. What I want to see is a crack like this with a shoot coming out of it. So I'm hopeful that this one is in the process. It just needs to warm up and it will start growing a shoot out of it. So we're going to test that. I'm going to leave that in the sun of this window. But the rest of these do not have that crack. And I believe what causes that crack is this nut freezing solid, the water inside of it expanding and creating a crack, which creates an opportunity through this thick hull for the shoot to grow or the seed to germinate. So I'm gonna take the rest of these that don't have that crack, I'm gonna put them in this bag and put them in the freezer to see if we can get that to occur. The other main difference that's interesting that I see, some of these are incredibly clean. Others, this one has a little bit of a crack in it, but some of these have some mold on it, so maybe they were wetter. The potting soil was stuck to it much more. In the past, I tried something different. I tried potting soil this time. I thought it'd be easier to clean off and easier to work with than the sand I've used in the past, but this has not given a good result. Weather is always a variable. It did get down to minus 17 Fahrenheit air temperature. That was the lowest, so I would think that would have been enough to freeze these, but maybe just having the bucket down and the potting soil provided more of an insulating barrier than I was anticipating, and they didn't fully freeze and crack, giving the opportunity for it to then germinate. So the health of this tree hasn't changed much over the 11 years. We've lived next to it, with a few exceptions. So it's hard to really tell without a before and after, but the
overall crown of the tree is developing and it's coming down. So this whole area where our yard is, I had to cut the trees down to be able to put the house in. So this was completely wooded. And so the crown of this tree was competing with a bunch of other oak trees for sunlight. So that's part of the reason it grew so tall, and it didn't have any of these branches kind of on the lower half of the crown as it is today. They've definitely started popping out lower as sunlight is available. So that's caused a few of the upper branches to die. I believe that is the reason, but I say believe because there's one other possibility. Unfortunately, 12 years ago, this big dead spot or wound in the bottom wasn't here. What happened is they had a large four-wheel drive forklift putting materials on the roof or helping move materials around to build the house. And it's hard to tell on camera, but there's a giant ridge up here and it's sloping down towards the base of the tree, and there's a lot of clay here, and it got wet, and that thing basically, you know, when you're stuck and you're losing traction, you slide downhill. Well, they slid that thing right into here, and then they had to pull it off with something else. I'm not sure the exact details, but they said, oops, we ran into one of your trees with our off-road forklift. And I'm like, okay, no big deal, except they didn't, it's the one American chestnut tree that we have. So that was unfortunate. I did coat it with that special paint right away and really haven't noticed much change over the years, other than obviously it's dead in that area and it's continued to sort of deteriorate, but seems to be healing over nicely around it. It's been a week since I pulled these out of the bucket. Unfortunately, I don't see any growth in this one that has the split. And these have been in the freezer a week. And I don't see any splitting on these either. So what I'm going to do is take a couple of these that are in the freezer, put them in pots, let them warm up with seed to soil contact and some sunlight, in addition to our one that cracked here, and see if we get any germination. I'm going to put these back in the freezer. Gonna put a C on this one because this is the one that cracked. I wish I had a better update. In the past, when I've had success, they sprouted in the bucket over winter, and I just transferred that nut with the sprout into a little pot, and I grew a little sapling. Unfortunately, that year they weren't getting enough sunlight in the garage, which makes sense, so I brought them out here and put them on top of this shed and this to get them more sunlight in the morning. Well, I left them for a little while, came back, and squirrels got up there, dug them all out, and ate the nut at the bottom of the sapling. That was a bad day. And unfortunately, this year doesn't look a lot better. I don't have high hopes for this. I'll provide an update in a few weeks, maybe a month, as these try to grow. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to yield anything. I'm not exactly sure why. Like I said, the one biggest change I made was changing from sand, a wet sand, to that potting soil. I don't know. Guess I'll go back to sand next year. A little bit frustrating, very slow process, waiting for the adult tree here to generate more nuts. That only happens once a year. I got to collect them before the squirrels and the deer eat them, and then wait all winter to see if they germinate, and this year doesn't look like good results. Stick with me though. Hopefully we can make this happen sometime. Thanks for watching.